Addictions touch even the best Christian families right here in San Diego. This is Recovery Radio San Diego with Todd Cunningham of Pacific Hills Treatment Center and Recovery Options Network, along with John and Leslie Savage on KPRZ weekdays at 6:30. Stay with us for real-life stories, help from Christian experts, what works and what doesn't work, and local area resources for you and your family. Welcome to Recovery Radio San Diego.
Good evening. You're listening to 1210 AM KPRZ. This is a brand new radio program about addictions and self-destructive behaviors and recovery. Welcome to Recovery Radio. My name is John Savage, and I am a grateful recovering addict. I am one of the 3 members of this new local radio ministry. Recovery Radio is a daily program heard Monday through Friday at this time, and its sole mission is to assist addicts and their families by providing local professional resources to get the help they need to live a happy, healthy, and productive life. In studio with me is my wife, Leslie, who throughout my period of drug abuse and now my recovery has stuck by me, and I'm very thankful for that. And also in our trio is Todd Cunningham from Recovery Options. We also have a special guest this afternoon that we're going to announce in just a moment. But Todd, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
So let's talk about the association that you have with Recovery Options.
Well, I work with Recovery Options and help direct all the operations that go on there. What we have is we have a call center where people call in from all over the United States. The people that are calling are people that are looking for help. They have somebody in their family that has an addiction or an abuse problem, and they're just not sure what to do. They usually have hit the wall. Some event has happened. Somebody's gotten arrested. There's been a car accident. The school is called. Something has happened, so they're at a point where they have to make a decision and decide what to do. And they will find us and call us. We have crisis counselors that have been doing this for many, many, many years. They're certified RAS counselors. And what they'll do is they'll work with the people on the phone, determine what their true situation is that's going on, and help identify what is the right strategy to start deploying in order to get help and peace in the family. And so we kind of create that blueprint and make recommendations. We work with people all over the United States. So I would hope that the viewers, if you know somebody that's going on in your family, that they can give us a call. For the next few weeks, I will be handling calls personally.
Very good.
You can call me at 949-973-9140, and I'd be honored and pleased to talk with anybody out there and help you.
Well, and they have been calling, haven't they?
Yes, they have.
And we're very thankful for that as well. People are out there. We know that we were on track when we decided to do this program to talk about recovery and addictions, and people are responding.
Yep, that's absolutely true. I took a call just the other night, and the gal said, I just never thought about calling anybody. And I heard you guys talking on the phones, and I heard your stories, and I just had to pull off the side of the road and talk. And she was in tears, and so I spent a good half hour, 45 minutes chatting with her and providing some peace and bring some reality to what's going on with them. And now today she calls me up and gives me her status, and she's doing the things that she needs to do. And that's the whole goal of this radio show. It is
indeed. Todd's number is 949-973-9140. Once again, and we're going to say this throughout the program, 949-973-9140. If you'd like to send us a note, you can do so by dropping us an email at recoveryradiosd@gmail.com. That's recoveryradiosd@gmail.com. My recovery journey began for me on May 1st, 2007. That was a little over 3 years ago when I finally surrendered and met God while in a Tijuana jail cell. For 2 years leading up to that day, I'd been abusing medication for my lower back pain. It had began with a pain medication prescription that you can get from a doctor. And then you continue to go back to the doctor and you begin to abuse those prescriptions. And so I had been managing 2 offices, one in San Diego and one down in Tijuana. And so I was down there quite often. And my addiction began to hopelessly get out of control. And it became to a point where I know my parents and my family thought for sure that I was going to end up dead somewhere down near the border. And I think back now, and I can see that I was really just days away from death. But now I know that God had other plans for me, and this radio ministry is one of them. And so on my knees in that Tijuana jail cell that day with lots of men around me, I finally surrendered myself that I actually had a problem, and I could not do anything about it. I was absolutely at the end of myself. It was my turning point, not only for my drug abuse, but now for my walk with the Lord. It's much, much renewed now. So this program is one of those purposes, and I'm very thankful to be with my family and right here today to talk about recovery. Now, taking the first steps in recovery is admitting that we are powerless over our addiction and that our lives have become unmanageable. And that's where I was at that time, completely at the end of myself and unable to stop. So immediately after being released from that Tijuana jail cell, I crossed back into the United States and checked myself into a detox center. And all of us here at Recovery Radio pray for that day for you. But sometimes when we take that first step, we need professional help to get started. And that takes us to our first step, surrendering and admitting that you're powerless and making sure that you get professional help. So over the next few days, we plan to discuss this step, the detox process. So Todd, why don't you go ahead and introduce our guest today?
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, we have Richard Perlin here with us today. Richard owns a detox center here in Southern California called First House Detox. Pacific Hills Treatment Centers has been working with Richard for, I think, going on 4 years now?
I think a little over 4 years, actually.
Over 4 years. And he has been doing just excellent work for us. We require that our clients, prior to coming in to doing treatment, that they are detoxed. So what we will do is we will, as the client is entering the process to coming to our treatment center, they will go over and have a wonderful stay with Richard, and he will make them comfortable while they're going through detox. I know that Richard is going to be focusing on detox during this show, but I know he has a huge passion for family members, and the family involvement in the recovery process of an addict is so important. And so he coaches families on a professional basis, and he also does interventions. And last week we touched a little bit on interventions. Mm-hmm. And so Richard will talk about interventions as well, as how do we get an addict or a loved one who's abusing alcohol or drugs to take that first step. So Richard, would you introduce yourself to the audience and kind of give us a story of how you got here, what you were doing before this? I know that most of us in this business have a story of some sort, and now we live our life for it.
Of course, and of course I have to remember that we only have a half-hour program here today, but my story is much like a lot of the clients that show up at First House, and through a series of events in my life. I'm now 55 years old. I was born in Newport Beach, California, to a good family that did their best for me. I had a long journey that, as a kind of a child of the 60s, involved initially drug abuse that combined alcohol and marijuana, that went through the psychedelic phase, eventually graduated to cocaine, and ultimately to heroin. And of course, in and out of jails, marriages, abandoned children, all the accoutrements of addiction are part of my story. On November 12th, 1995, a date that's about a week away or two now, I reached the very bottom that John spoke of earlier on the top bunk of the Costa Mesa City jail cell, where one more time I was on my way to detox cold turkey at Orange County Jail. And because my background was in the automotive business, when I got out of jail, I was granted people stepped up and intervened in my life. Again, I had long since run my family and friends out of my life, but a 12-step program came to my aid through a series of what at the time I thought were lucky coincidences, but ultimately I understood were a God-given intervention. I made it to a treatment center in the city of Costa Mesa. I went through that treatment program, and I remember at age 40 thinking for the first time in my life, boy, just maybe things could be different. And so I got back to what I knew at that time, which was the automotive business. I've always been blessed to be a hard worker. I was very successful in that regard, and but when the opportunity came to kind of really embrace recovery work in a meaningful sense, I took it. I had acquired some residential properties in the city of Costa Mesa, and I started with the kind of the conviction that I could do detox better. The original business plan revolved around providing quality medical detox to people that could not afford to go into what at the time was the industry standard, which was a hospital setting. And so I licensed those houses for detox, and boy, I've learned a lot along the way. I'm very proud of what First House Detox does. We have a series of 3 state licensed homes now, where licensed for 6 people each, 2 men's and 1 women's home. And in those homes, a patient will come to us. They'll see the doctor. The doctor will prescribe a detox protocol that revolves around initially making people comfortable. I think one of the great fears of an addict or an alcoholic is the anxiety or the physical elements that accompany detox. And so our job is to put their minds at ease, not just from the physical aspect, but support them emotionally. There's a lot written about addiction being a fear-based disease, and certainly that's a part of my story. And so at First House and at all quality facilities, I think our real challenge is to let addicts and alcoholics know that they're not alone, that people really do understand. I think that's the battle cry of a lot of addicts. You do not understand how I feel. And of course, it becomes impossible for that person to say that to someone that's been through that struggle. Most of the people that work in the recovery industry are in recovery themselves. I think it's very difficult to carry the message without having been there. So,
well, we just really thank you for taking the time to come in, not only tonight, but all this week. The voice you heard is Richard Perlin with First House Detox. This is 1210 AM KPRZ. You're listening to Recovery Radio.
Great. Hey, Richard, we're going to be this whole week talking about detox and protocols and how they pertain to different drugs or alcohol and so on. This week, we're going to talk about the generalities behind detox. My first question is like I stated just a few minutes ago, is the Pacific Hills treatment centers, prior to us bringing a client in, we require them to have certain levels of detox. And we kind of depend on you to give them that detox. Can you tell me what the term detox actually means?
Yeah, I think detox, and I think that's a great question, although it sounds like a simple one. It's a great question because there are a couple of different aspects to it. I think most people believe that detox is removing the active addiction to drugs or alcohol, and the physical symptoms that accompany that. But in talking to many, many people that have come through our doors over the years, and I, once again, don't have to look any further than my own situation, I think that the mental obsession that accompanies addiction has to be put at bay as well. And by that I mean that before somebody goes to Pacific Hills, in order to receive the real gift of treatment, which is to focus on themselves and affect that change, they have to be not only physically stable, but emotionally stable as well. And so that's a great big component of what we do, kind of just assurance to an addict or alcoholic that, look, you're safe now. We're not breaking new ground here. People have gone successfully through this process, millions of people over an extended period of time, and we try and kind of utilize the common experience of recovery to position people to be successful when they go to treatment. So it's both mental and physical detox.
Right. Well, I know that going through detox is different from person to person. What are the risks?
Well, of course, physiologically, all people are different. Sometimes an older client would take a bit longer than a younger one to detox, for example. People have different thresholds in terms of pain management, etc. And so we really rely on the doctor to make that ultimate determination. But kind of a rule of thumb, an alcohol detox on the for somebody physically dependent on alcohol, and by that I mean someone that displays symptoms of withdrawal, maybe that shaking or the sweating or the high levels of anxiety would be indicative of alcohol withdrawal. On the low end, that person would need 3 days to 5 days to emerge from that. A lot of it is subjective in nature, kind of under the heading of how do you feel? Are you ready to do this thing? And so we really try to kind of to foster trust in our clients and have them advocate for themselves in terms of when they're ready to go to that next step. I think it's a mistake to kind of say, hey, look, you need 2 days. That individual might be scared to death about what's going to happen, and certainly an element of what we do and any quality center does is to be a good listener and kind of factor in those intangibles that might not show up in a classic medical screening.
Richard, I have a question. There's a lot of people listening out there right now, family and friends, that know how hard it is to convince someone to go into a detox. What kind of advice do you have for them?
Well, Leslie, I can just borrow a little bit. This is really my area of passion because, like all of us in this room, we realize that that detox is just the very first step, and most families have been through that cycle many, many times, where they'll get a loved one into detox, and that loved one will emerge and say, "I will never do that again," only to repeat the same behavior. And so I really believe that to a great extent, the family is the single most vital component, the family and friends, the single most vital component in an alcoholic or addict's recovery. That when a family positions itself to really understand addiction, the chances for the addict or alcoholic to recover increase exponentially. And so, education under the heading of what can we really do? There's a lot of line of common thought out there that, look, until the substance abuser is ready to do something different, there's nothing that can be done. But truly, if you step back a little bit and discard the emotion of recovery for a moment, you'll see that the family is being impacted by alcoholism just as certainly as the alcoholic. And so, what we do at First House and of course over at Pacific Hills as well, any quality center will work with the family to give them their assignment. I always tell families, you cannot ask an addict or an alcoholic to work a program of recovery if you're not willing to do so. And if we really scroll through our memory banks as families, we see clearly that in many cases, an addict or an alcoholic has only always done what we've allowed them to do. And of course, that's not all of us would stop what we're doing to render assistance to the people that we love at any time, day or night. That's not what I mean by that. But to take a well thought out stance with the help of a professional that essentially carries a message to an addict or an alcoholic that says, look, we love you, but we're not going to do this anymore. And then to kind of have some structure to that commitment that doesn't give ground again. That's really how people get better.
You're listening to 1210 AM KPRZ. This is Recovery Radio for San Diego, and I just want to stop real briefly here and give out a telephone number. I think I want to make sure that we always get that phone number out for Todd up at Recovery Options so he can help you evaluate your situation. Todd's number is 949-973-9140. That's 949-973-9140. And at the end of the program today, we're also going to discuss some scholarship opportunities that we're making available to the San Diego community. So I just wanted to just stop real quick in the middle of that conversation, get the telephone number out, and then let our listeners know that we have scholarship opportunities. So,
I'd like to add to that. You're listening to Richard talk about Detox and the services he provides, undoubtedly some of the listeners are going to want to talk to Richard. And so what I would do is encourage them to go ahead and call. They can call my number at 949-973-9140. And I will give your number out, Richard, so people can call you.
Wonderful.
So I was just reading some of the notes yesterday that you provided, and there was a term in there that was called detox relapse. And I have never heard that term. Could you expand on what detox relapse is? I understand what relapse is, but I've never heard that term detox relapse.
Well, I think probably what I was referring to in that regard was just the cycle of addiction that many people go through. A lot of people look at detox as an end play rather than just the beginning. And so, in the absence of a very solid recovery pursuit after detox, it is absolutely inevitable, in my opinion, that the cycle will repeat itself. There are certain things that are absolutely indispensable in terms of an addict or alcoholic really receiving the gift of recovery. And in the absence of them making those meaningful commitments, hopefully to a treatment center, hopefully certainly benefiting from 12-step meetings and, of course, the different elements of support that are available there. But and of course the positioning of the family. I think many families make the mistake of just wanting this whole nightmare to go away, and they've been through the mill so long that they really lose the resolve to push forward and would rather just close the door on it and on their loved one's addiction. But let's face it, we're never going to stop loving our loved ones, and so we really have to kind of turn that around. We have to reach out for help. There are just infinite resources, quality people that want to help, that are motivated by the opportunity to help. And so I just would really encourage people to not give up in terms of breaking that cycle.
Sounds like Detox is quite specialized. Can you go into what our options are for detox? I've heard of NTR. I've heard of rapid detox. I've heard of some really crazy forms of detox that keep coming across my desk at Pacific Hills Treatment Centers. Could you kind of bring some reality to us on what these terms mean and what they are? Well,
yeah, and of course, I see John nodding over there too, and it's I think people they're always looking for the easy way out, and there's an old saying, and it's certainly applicable to recovery: if you play, you pay. And of course, all of us at First House and everywhere that inspiration kind of lurks in the recovery industry, all of us understand how difficult it is to lose your best friend, which is essentially what an addict or alcoholic does when they put down the bottle or the drug. But I think from in utilizing Western medicine principles here, detox means a cessation of drug or alcohol use. That's with a medical protocol is most often required in terms of aiding the individual to get over the hump physically. I think that rapid detox is one of the elements that you mentioned. There's certainly an advantage to that. That is a system, to my understanding, and I'm not expert in that category, but it was a system that had a lot of appeal to people because an opiate addict could, over a 3-day period, remove all opiates from their bloodstream, et cetera, et cetera. And, of course, that's very attractive to somebody that maybe has gone through the awful experience of detoxing in a non-medical environment. There's a great deal of fear associated with that. And so we just have to kind of stay open-minded and see what's out there. In terms of that, I don't mind answering any question about that whenever the opportunity comes.
Well, you know what? This week is going to be all about what we're talking about today is the detoxification process, and then interventions. You will touch with interventions, right?
I'd love to.
Good. That's very important. You're listening to 1210 AM KPRZ. This is Recovery Radio for San Diego. And let me just quickly talk about the scholarship programs and toss it to Todd for our scholarship programs.
Great. Pacific Hills Treatment Centers is sponsoring this program. What they're doing is offering some scholarships to the churches of the local community and businesses. What it is a dollar-for-dollar scholarship match. So if you would like to learn more about that, I know that every church out there has somebody in their congregation that needs help. Mm-hmm. I know that the majority of businesses out there has somebody in there that's employed by them that needs help. You're not doing anybody a service if you don't pick up the phone and call us after listening to this, because this is an opportunity that you just really can't miss. So, again, is you're going to call me directly at 949-973-9140, and let's get these people some help.
That's good. If you'd like to send us a note, you can do so using our Gmail account, and that address is recoveryradiosd@gmail.com. That's recoveryradiosd@gmail.com. We're going to pick up our conversation tomorrow and talk about prescription drug detox, alcohol detox. Richard brought up opiates, and then also kind of wrap it up with family involvement, because it takes everybody. Everybody is involved in this process of recovery. And so we're going to end our program today with a telephone number. It's 949-973-9140. That's our time for today. We thank you for listening. If you need to talk to somebody right now, Todd is available at that telephone number. Thank you. Have a good evening. We will see you tomorrow on 1210 AM KPRZ.
Addictions touch even the best Christian families right here in San Diego. This is Recovery Radio San Diego with Todd Cunningham of Pacific Hills Treatment Center and Recovery Options Network, along with John and Leslie Savage on KPRZ weekdays at 6:30. Stay with us for real-life stories, help from Christian experts, what works and what doesn't work, and local area resources for you and your family. Welcome to Recovery Radio San Diego.